Good evening and welcome to this evening's session, the AMA session, the Ask Me Anything session. We've got a really good one lined up for you tonight. It's all about landscapes, daytime landscapes. We've got lots of people coming in, lots of regulars, so welcome. Really, really lovely to see you in the chat. As always with these sessions, we like to get through lots of questions. So if you have any questions about landscapes, how you would shoot on the bodies, the lenses, let's go through them, put them in the chat and we can go through them. So we won't do too many hellos tonight because of time constrictions, but the hellos we do want to know are the TEs that are joining us tonight. The first one is PJ or Przemyslaw from Poland. Hey PJ, how you doing?
Hi Claire, hello everybody.
Welcome to see you. You look all professional and awesome in your studio there.
It's nice light, yes.
It does look nice. It does look really nice. How are you, PJ? Are you good?
Yes, I'm good. I'm prepared with filters, with lenses, with cameras. I will ask for every question what our viewers have.
I can't wait. And there are some good questions coming in. Now, obviously, yes, so I'm looking forward to that. Now, who else have we got in tonight? We have got the lovely, both from the USA, all the way from the USA. We have Mike, Amico, and Mike.
Hey Claire, how you doing? How's it going?
I'm really good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, looking forward to.
Lovely to see you. I'm really looking forward to meeting up next month. It's going to be fun, but for now we just have to continue to see each other online, right?
Virtually, yes, of course.
Virtually. And again, you look awesome. You've got all the kit. You look like in your pro studio. I've gone very dark tonight. You know.
Yes.
Green.
Yes, the former office that became a FedEx Central that became a studio. Yeah.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And lastly, but definitely not least, you will not have met this gentleman before. He lives all the way over in Australia, and it's like ridiculous time in the morning. But I'd love to welcome Aaron Harivel. Aaron, fantastic for you to join us. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Claire. Good morning, everybody. How are we all? Yeah, a little bit early here, but absolutely pumped to be here with everybody. So really looking forward to it.
I love that. And how many espressos are you on at the moment, Aaron?
Third.
Yes, it's what time there in the morning? 6 or something?
It's just clicked over 6 a.m. So early start, but that's when we get our best photos.
And you know what? Globalization, and we are now a global company, one big global family. So we have 4 corners of the world here, and it's fantastic. And in the comments, we have an amazing range of people. We have people from New York City, from Nebraska, from Hampshire in the UK, from Wales, Oslo in Norway. We have Florida. I mean, we have Baltimore. So we really are a global company and going global. So as with always, the show isn't about me. It's about those questions. I am going to go straight into the questions now. Just shout if you want to take the question. If you go quiet, I will throw it at one of you. Okay, guys? Here we go. Here we go. Let's have a look at what we've got in here. So let's take a couple of questions. Okay. This is from Dream Players. He says, or she says, be careful. I've tried to use ND mode, but get a picture all white and don't know why, as ISO's on 60 for highest. ND available. Can you show me the correct settings for daytime in live mode? Mike, you're nodding away. Do you want to take this one?
Yeah. So what you have to remember is that the live ND, it's not a traditional ND filter. It's basically mimicking the effects of an ND filter by using multiple exposures on moving areas of the scene. So it's not necessarily going to cut your light down. So during the day, if you're in a really bright situation, you may want to use an actual ND filter as well as live ND to really cut that down, or, shoot a little earlier in the day, a little later in the afternoon. But definitely you'll get the effect of, the moving clouds, the milky water, things like that. But it won't necessarily cut that light like a true ND filter will do. So just something to keep in mind when you're using it, because you're going to slow that shutter speed down, but you have that bright light still coming in.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends on the effects you want, right? If you're going for high key, great.
Right,
But
right.
actually, if you're going for 60-second exposures or more, you need to use external filters anyway. And do you need to check that you're not using a 4 or 5 second exposure time? Because 1 or 2 seconds using inbuilt live ND, I sort of get away with most of the time for about what I need, right?
Yeah, you can stop down your f-stop a little bit. Don't worry about it. Stop it right down, and take that, like you said, you're taking that ISO down to 64. So just cut that light a little bit. You get away with 1/8 of a second, or something along those lines, a second. Sure.
Yeah. And what about PJ and Aaron? Have you guys used the live ND built in? What about you, PJ?
Yes, I use like ND. I use ND64 mostly in OM1, but I mixed this with big stopper like ND1000 or ND10000 physical filter on lenses, because live ND filter is not only longer exposure, but better quality in darkness, because live ND have bigger dynamic range than normal picture, and this is why I mixed this two type of filters on landscape photography.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely find for me the live ND on a 1 or 2 second exposure is great when I've not got my tripod with me and yet I sort of stumble across a waterfall or something. But like anything over 60 seconds, you need the tripod, you need the external filters. So live ND definitely has its place, but it isn't for every single landscape shot, right?
Absolutely. The only other thing that I just thought of just then was to also make sure that the live simulation is activated as well, because that is actually something that you can turn on and off inside your camera. So if, depending on the model that you're shooting with, you can actually go in next to where the live ND setting is inside the back end menu of the camera, and just make sure that live simulation is on as well, because I mean, that's the other dimension that live ND gives you, is that real-time read as to what that exposure is going to look like prior to capture. So just make sure that you haven't switched that off would be a tip as well. But otherwise, yeah, like the guy said, stop your aperture down. You will get that real-time read as to what you're looking at, and then, make your adjustments on top of there. And then again, if you're in that really high key situation, then that's the beauty of this technology, is that you can use it with the physical filters at the same time.
Yeah, I was going to say the magic of mirrorless, right?
Absolutely.
We must remember also live ND have limitation. The fastest shutter speed is 1 per 125. We can't use fast shutter speed, and in bright day we need stop aperture down to cast light.
Right.
Absolutely.
Good. I hope that covers your question. We are going to go over to Sikandar's question. This is quite interesting because Sikandar has put a few questions in about Astro. Well, Sikandar, your questions or your dreams have been answered, because next month on Tuesday, the 25th of April, our next Ask Me Anything is all about Astro, night sky, moon, the lenses, which bodies, how to shoot. So we're not going to ask you any of the night stuff tonight. We're going to save it for next month. So if you can join us Tuesday, the 25th of April, bring along your night sky questions. We will get through them then. Okay. I hope that helps. Okay, let's go on. Excuse me. Deborah Hammond, I have a very basic question. No question is basic, Deborah. They're all good questions. When I look through either the viewfinder or the screen, I do not see the setting, ISO, f-stop, speed, etc. I'm sure I should. Can you tell me what I need to do, please? Aaron, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, that's the brilliant thing is it's a nice, simple, I suppose, response to that is that the info button on the back of your camera, and this works with every single camera in our range, doesn't matter what you're shooting with. when you're looking through that viewfinder, if you can find your thumb onto the back of the info button and just keep hitting that info button, and you're going to cycle through the different options that you've got for what's going to be coming up on your display there. So if right now you've got no information there, which can be nice because again, it means that your image isn't cluttered up and all that sort of thing. But if you keep hitting that info button while you're looking through the viewfinder, it will cycle between all those different options. Just keep hitting info until you find that setting where it's all the information is displayed the way that you would like it to be.
Yeah. And it's really interesting, this question, because although it's a question about the viewfinder or the screen, it's actually quite pertinent to landscape for me, because when I shoot landscape, I turn everything off. I don't want to see the numbers. I want a really clear idea of what I'm going to take a picture of, the actual view itself. And so sometimes
it's brilliant for composition, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So it is actually quite an interesting question, because if you didn't know you could turn off all that information, Deborah has now let you know. Just press the info button and you can get a really clear screen and have a good look at your composition in all corners, in all areas, not hidden under an aperture or an ISO or something like that. So Deborah, well done for bringing it up, because actually it's very relevant. Okay, we hope that answers your question. Just a quick one. We have David Smith. Dax is in the comments tonight. So if we don't get around to all of your questions, David is there typing furiously. And obviously we have Michaela, who is producing the show as well. So just a big hello to those guys who you know and love. We have a question from David Fitz. It says, aloha from Hawaii. I'd like to be in Hawaii right now, let me tell you. What settings would you suggest for surf photography from the beach for better focus accuracy? I'm renting the OM1 with the 150-400. PJ, over to you.
This is a funny question, because in last month I've been in Nazareth. This is a place in Portugal with the biggest wave in the world. And I have the best accurate of autofocus with bird detection. Wow. I don't know why, but bird detection recognize surfers as bird, and 99% of photos I have perfect sharp. If you don't want to use bird detection, I suggest use continuous autofocus with continuous autofocus sensitivity +2, and use large point of autofocus, and try to use center priority point to target surfers. And I think this is the best idea for surfers on the waves.
And would would you go for pro capture or just multi burst on the surfer? Because obviously you've got the bird AI already.
SH2 for me, SH2. If we have some big waves with not clear situation, pro capture is the best way. But in normal surfer situation, I will use SH2.
Oh, and Aaron, were you going to say something then?
Oh no! All I was sort of thinking about. I mean, that can be a really, really challenging shooting environment, can't it? Because you've got a lot of busy background, you've got fast-moving subjects. So, I guess that's where, as PJ said, that's where the technology comes in for that subject recognition. So, I mean, it's crazy, and like you think about it, the sort of shape of the way that somebody's going to be moving when they're on a surfboard. Maybe that's why, from a subject recognition point of view, that really works.
Yeah, but, maybe like with the arms out, it looks like wings or something. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah. But I guess the other brilliant part of the highest frame rate that you get with continuous focus with the OM1 is that the faster refresh rate means a faster level of calculation to individual frame focusing. So using that in combination with continuous focus is definitely going to be the way you're going to get the best results out of it, for sure.
Good stuff. And David, you are renting the OM1 with the 150-400, which is the best combination, for that type of photography. So we hope that's given you some good tips, and share them on our social. Let's have a look what you've achieved, because we always like to see these things, especially if you're someone new to the system and you're sort of finding out what's what. We hope that has answered your question. Okay, I'm going straight in for Trent Watts. Is there a way to use the Olympus remote control and pro capture, i.e. can you press half the button. Mike, you want to take this one?
That's a great question. There should be. When you use the remote, you should be able to press halfway, I believe.
Yeah.
It's a great question, but also I believe on the
app.
On the app.
Yeah. You can do it on both. Yeah.
You could do a half on the app as well, and you can lock as well. Yeah. So remote controller app, you should be able to half press.
Yeah, I agree. And there are other remotes out there. Don't get me wrong, but the OM one definitely does the halfway press. So for pro capture, like you say, it's absolutely the way forward. And if you haven't got the remote, as Mike says, the OI Share app on your phone is absolutely incredible. I mean,
it's really cool. Yeah.
It's so cool to do pro capture on the phone. Is just really good. So takes a bit of practice, but honestly, it's just so easy to use. And is everybody all cool with that? Keep your questions coming in. Oh, there's lots of stars. Okay, we're going to go straight in. This one's for you, Aaron. I want to know what I need to do with the OMI file when I import high-res files. Is that file needed for anything?
Yeah, that's a good one. We get this quite frequently because I guess there's not a lot of literature about this and why it's actually created and what it's actually all about. But the ORI file is actually generated when you're capturing high-res shots, specific to when you're shooting on tripod. I'm pretty sure you don't see these when you shoot handheld high-res, if your camera does that. What it actually is a slightly higher resolution file compared to the full 80 megapixel one that you're going to get out of camera. But the whole reason why it's there is that it generates this if there's any subject movement in there. So you actually still get a higher than normal resolution file that is still super malleable, and it is slightly higher than what your standard single capture would be. And then on top of that, you've also got the full 80 megapixel high-res file as well. Now, little tip that I worked out with this a long time ago is that if you're editing in anything outside of OM Workspace, the simple way to get this file recognized and be editable in things like Lightroom and that sort of thing is to actually go in and change the file name type to ORF instead of ORI. And once you do that, you can plug that into pretty much anything as long as it's obviously compatible or that raw file is compatible with the type of software that you're using. So it is an important file generation. Again, there's not a lot of literature around it, but that's actually what it's doing for you, is still giving you a slightly enhanced file compared to your standard single capture. But then you'll actually have 3 file types if you select it that way. So you'll have the JPEG, you'll have the ORI file, and then you'll have the full raw file at the same time.
Brilliant stuff. And they can all be opened by OM Workspace, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So straight out of the box, all of those can all be used in Workspace. But as I said, you can just change that actual file naming from ORI to ORF. And as long as your software recognizes ORF files from your particular camera, you'll be able to edit that straight away.
Amazing. Okay, one for you, PJ, because we've gone back to the live ND and filter stuff, and I know you've got filters in your hand. So Victor says, using live ND or an actual ND filter, is there any difference in image quality or hand holding limitations?
If we will use live ND, ND64 example, and good quality ND filters, physical ND64, picture will be the same before editing, because after editing, in editing, like in Lightroom in OM Workspace, we can put our shadows, more details from our shadows in live ND pictures. If we need only longer exposure, physical filter give the same quality. But we must remember we must use good quality physical filter, because if we use some cheap from some pages filters, we will have some different colors, some bleaks, light of leaks, and this is not good idea to use the filter like this. I prefer mix filters. I prefer mix filter like one moment, like this. This is ND 1000 square filters with ND 64 and DC32, I think this is the best idea to have very long exposure and have very good quality of image and better quality in shadows in raw file.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So, Victor, you talked about hand holding. Now, obviously, hand holding, let's take that word as it stands, right? Hand holding. There are always going to be limitations to hand holding. Now, I did know a guy who worked in central London, one of my central London stores, that could hand hold for 8 seconds, but he'd never had a drink in his life. He'd never eaten drunk coffee. His body was a temple. That's not me. So I can hand hold for about 2 seconds in running water, as in a river or a lake, and I can get perfectly sharp shots. Now, hand holding is always going to be able if you are able to keep still. You know what I mean? So there will always be, I don't like the word limitations because it sounds like it's a negative thing, but hand holding is down to practice, you know, how you stand, you know, always stand with your legs wide apart. So you're like a tree, so you're like a tripod. You always use put the camera on your face. So you're using that as almost like a sort of stand or a tripod. So there are lots of things you can do to aid your hand holding. And obviously the image stabilization is pretty damn awesome as well. And as I said, I do know people that can hold 5, 6, 7 seconds, but keep that in mind. There are no set times for you to be able to hand it, but practice definitely makes perfect. Does everyone agree with that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
In my opinion, Live ND is easier to handhold than normal ND filter because this is stacked picture into one row from 64 or 32 or 60 pictures, and computer in our cameras do some magic and can stabilize image more than one long exposure with filter, physical filter.
Yeah, and it's because obviously like the workings are going on this side of the camera, whereas with a Lee filter, for instance, the workings are going on the other side of the camera, if you sort of get what I mean. So yeah, 100%. And as I said, Live ND only works up to 60 seconds. Anything, if you want really milky white bleached out shots, then you would go for Lee filters, or other brands are available. Make sure they're good ones. And then you would use a tripod anyway. So yeah. Cool. Okay, let's go on to the next question. We hope that answers your question, Victor. Gary says, when using an ND filter, i.e. a 10 stopper, have you tried using this long exposure technique to avoid capturing people walking around in a landscape scene? Well, absolutely. Even so, with Live ND on an OM5 with an 825 f4, my project, long-term project at the moment, is photographing Stockholm Underground Metro. Okay, and whenever I go out, it's always about 6 or 7, and there's loads of people around. So I hand hold the Live ND 2-3 seconds, and sometimes it blurs them, sometimes it makes them completely disappear. Depends on how busy that shot is. So actually, yes is the answer. You can do it using a filter or using Live ND. So I love that. Obviously, a 10 stopper or an ND 10 stopper, you can have the shutter open for a lot longer, which will allow all the people to disappear, assuming they're not stood still. Because again, in a train station, that's a good one, isn't it? Where you got that one person that's just exactly in that same spot.
Photoshop.
Nice, Mike. What about you? What have you got tips on this?
Yeah, I haven't really done that much. More like with live composite, you know, where you have that kind of effect of cars and such just kind of disappearing.
Love that.
But yeah, it's a great technique to use to have people. I like having people showing up a little bit, depending on what I'm shooting. Like if I'm at like a state fair, a carnival, things like that, where you have ghosting of people or feet or heads, you know, around rides and stuff. I love that. So, but yeah, it's definitely something to play with and have fun with. And you can definitely make people sort of disappear by doing that. Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Magic.
Good idea.
DJ, you were going to
Can I?
say?
Yes, if you want ghost people only, but not disappeared, on even in bright day, I prefer do high res shot, because high res shot do ghost from people even in a very bright day, and it's with no problem, with no limitation.
Yeah.
I do this in all architectural pictures. If I do need only ghosting, small blurring of people, higher shot is the best idea.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, do you know, just quickly on the side, I did a Zoom talk yesterday with David Tippling. It was the art of bird photography. And he did a high-res shot of a barn owl coming down, taking a piece of meat from a tree. And the image was incredible. It was like 8 barn owls all in one shot. And yeah, it was really interesting how people are starting to use these like live composite, live ND, high res for different things. You know, it's not just related to one specific feature, is it?
No, I always tell people, you know, the computational modes that we have,
Right.
like for instance, live composite, somebody might say, well, that's cheating. I could do that on any camera, but it's like cheating in the camera. I look at it as it's another tool that's there for you that now, because it does it, you can open up to other categories. You can try different things because you don't have to think about it. The camera's doing it. So now what can I do with it? And that's kind of like doing that, right? The bird with high res. It just opens up to so many different creative types of shooting you can work with. It's really cool.
I know, and it's like, you know, surfers with bird AI. I mean, it's just crazy. And you know, where are we going with this tech? What's coming next? Because you know, we just keep innovating and innovating.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
It's cool stuff. Very cool stuff.
Good, Gary. We hope that answers your question. Okay, Aaron, I'm going to throw this one to you. Hi, are there any drawbacks to using ISO below 200? And Carol, lovely to see you. Lovely, thanks for joining us. Carol's over in Northern Ireland, and I've met Carol many times. She's one of our lovely customers. What's your answer, Aaron?
Yeah, cool. Look, I guess, again, there's not a lot of literature around this sort of stuff because we've been doing like a low setting for ISO, whether that be 100 or 50, whatever it happens to be, depending on the camera. What is, I suppose, again, not a lot of literature on, so it's not super clear, is that below 200 ISO on every single Olympus or OM system camera is like it's being simulated or processed, I suppose, is the easiest way to say it. So on every single Olympus camera, you should always use, when appropriately, use 200 ISO. That is where you're going to get the best quality picture in every single possible way. But you're really not going to really notice, I don't think, if you're using ISO 80 or ISO low, ISO 64, whatever it happens to be. Unless you really start to stretch that file, that raw file, when you're processing it after the fact. Because, again, it's all about controlling light, and that's obviously one of the things that we do with ISO. But honestly, the limitation for it, or the difference between the 200 file versus a 64 or a low ISO setting is pretty negligible, again, unless you're really trying to pull that raw file in multiple directions at the same time. Right. So again, don't not use it. I mean, that's why it exists there. It's a function, it's a tool. It's all about you in that moment getting the shot the way that you need it to. And we already talked about, you know, using that for live ND and situations like that, where you're just doing your absolute utmost to limit the amount of light that's coming into your camera. So so sorry to not sort of say yes or no, because obviously it's not a yes or no answer, but the reality is that it does exist in a positive way, and that's the whole reason why you should use it. But again, you should always use 200 ISO wherever you can, because you will actually get the best results out of your camera because of that.
It's like with anything, isn't it? There are sweet spots, and the technologies at either end, you know, going up the ISO chain, coming down the ISO chain, as the processors get better and the R&D get better, and all these electronics move on, those things are passed on. And it's like, you know, 5.6 on the sweet spot of a lens. When it comes to engineering and actually making these things, you have to have a starting point, right? And you have to have a sort of go-to point, and they tend to be 200 ISO, f5.6, and I have found that the OM1 definitely, you know, when you're going to 64 and stuff like that, it's pretty great. I mean, I always try and stick to 200, like you say, if you can, but you shouldn't be frightened to try and use those lower ISOs. They're there for a reason. They are there and been developed to be usable, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. Marie Claire Lander, is Live ND available on the EM1 Mark II? Well, this is very sad because the answer is no. Time to upgrade, Marie. We've got lots of promotions on the OM1 at the moment. That's a terrible selling thing, but there's cashback. There's lots of in-store things going on. I hope you could, maybe you could part extra Mark II, but yeah, Live ND is on the Mark OM1, EM, OM5, and what else, guys? One more.
EM1 Mark III and the X.
There you go. See, 4 of them, all there, done.
And it is one of those things that will change your life. I know it. I know that sounds a bit cheesy, but once you've got it, there is literally no looking back. It is just such an amazing thing to have.
Yep,
I climbed a waterfall in Wales in September. I had my OM5. Was it an OM5? No, I had the OM1 with a wide lens and nothing else. I had my hands free. I climbed up the rocks. I had no tripod. I took my shoes off. I stood in the middle of the waterfall and took some incredible shots. I would never have been able to do that with another system.
Yeah.
Just wouldn't. I'd have had to carry everything, my hands, Let me tell you, it takes away so much of the hassle, especially, as I said, hand holding in a waterfalling way is so much fun. Okay, Craig Smith. Is there a reason that I should not delete image files on the SD card using the computer when I'm finished transferring the images onto my hard drive? Mike, you want to take this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've never done that. Typically, I'll do it in the camera if I'm going to delete. I don't know if you guys know. I don't know if it would really affect it. I'm sure it could. But to me, it's always better to just do it in the camera, only because you're formatting in the camera. You're not risking.
Deleting is one thing. Formatting is something else. Now, deleting from camera or deleting from PC or Mac, right, is absolutely fine, but you will always leave a trace of a file.
Right.
Like it's what I call a skeleton file. And if you're going to do that, you really should format cards to clean them completely at some point. Obviously, make sure you have transferred them first because, once you're formatted. But I am a regular, I've got a whole list, a whole desk of cards here. And whenever I sit down like once a month and I go through them, I upload them to my hard drive and then I format them. You can format them in camera. Have you got any ideas, PJ? Do you prefer to format in camera and delete in camera, or you delete on Mac?
I am totally backup big fan and Creed because I have free backup before I delete from card. I copy from my card to my Mac and from Mac to my NAS drive to SSD, another backup, and then I formatting card in camera. But before that, I have free backup of all files before I delete from 2 SD cards, because I have always 2 SD cards in camera, because I lost many pictures from SD cards. This is the worst part of whole process of taking picture. This small plastic SD cards, if you use bad condition SD card or bad SD cards, it's not good idea, I think, and I need to do a lot of backup now.
Good. Okay, guys. I think we've answered that. Everybody happy with that one? Let's move on. Okay. Sally Britton, how do I get the focus to zoom in closer? I magnify the image. Sally, which camera do you have? You do have a couple of options. You've got magnify in manual focus assist.
Yep.
Depends on, or you've also got magnify you could assign to a button. Let us know which camera you've got, Sally, and we can see if we can come back to that one, okay? Because it's different on different cameras.
We've also sorry Claire, you've also got touch to magnify on the LCD screen as well, which I'm pretty sure works the same on most cameras, but those other functions 100%. If that's something that you love, and especially if you've got the pro lenses, pull the lens or the focus clutch back on that pro lens to go into manual focus, and if you've got the magnifier and the peaking already programmed on there under focus assist, bang, they're right there for you straight away. So, but again, that setup depends on your camera. So let's hear back from Sally and see what she says.
Or Sally, if Dax, if you're in the background, if you could, you could.
Oh no, there she is. So M1 Mark III.
Mark III. There you go. Who wants to take this one?
Well, there's a couple ways to look at it. Like you guys said, are we talking about the 2x teleconverter in the camera, or are we talking about magnifying for manual focus?
Right. Let's go for Let's go for the first one.
So teleconverter?
Yeah.
Easiest way to use that, to be honest, is, in my opinion, is not to go into the menu and turn it on, but to put it on a function button. So if you go into your super control panel and look for the little gear icon, it'll be a shortcut to the function button feature in the menu, and you pick a button on the camera and make that the 2x teleconverter, and then when you press that button, you'll see your image zoom in 2 times. That's the easiest way to do that. Same thing with magnify. Put it on a function button.
Yeah, it's so easy to you choose a button you don't use, and assign it, because that's definitely the way forward. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Okay.
Sure.
Larry Henderson, this is a good question. I have a 1240 and a 40-150,
Great
which
question.
is better for landscaping. Now, this is very interesting because landscapes aren't always that super wide shot that we automatically go for a 714 or an 825. I have seen some incredible shots with the 40-150, because telephoto zoom landscape shots can be just as awesome. You may be pulling a spire out of like a dusty morning or something like that. So what do you think, guys? What's that? PJ, what do you think between the difference in a 12 foot or 40-150?
12 to 100.
Oh, you're 12-100.
Option number 3.
This is Lord of the Ring.
You've got everything. The 12-100 does
this is
right?
all-in-one lenses. But if I must honest, my favorite setup for landscape is 8-25 and 40-150 2.8, and this cover everything. 8-25 is the best travel landscape lenses for wide angle and standard wide of view. 40-150 I use for panoramas, for very narrow angle, like I show some maybe picture. One moment.
Yeah.
Like this picture, I can't use a wide angle for a picture like this. Wait, one moment. This is huge.
There you go.
This is 40-150. This is one more.
Yeah.
This is 40. This is the same situation. This is not a wide angle. This is 40-150 on 40. If we want to have a nice perspective, not I don't know in English, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's about perspective. Like you say, the angles of this are perfect, right?
For me, this is two type of different lenses. Wide angle and telephoto lenses is two different situation. We can do the same picture in the with wide angle and telephoto, but this will be totally different picture. We should take two to all our tracking.
Yeah, like you say, you could take two, one with the super wide and one with the 40-150, but those buildings basically have much more of a normal shape. They bring them to the front of the image, and they do change that whole shape and perspective when you use a longer lens. So, Larry, whatever's in the bag, you can do a landscape with. Let me tell you, you can do everything from
12 to 100.
12-100, or right?
Everything. This is my favorite lens. So.
It is a great all-in-one. It really is. Yeah.
And 12-100 have image stabilization. We can use Sync IS to long exposure. I have one picture from 8 seconds from 12-100 from handheld. This is brilliant lens. Cool. My favorite.
Okay. Now, this is a good question because I'm not going to lie, I have never done focus stacking during landscapes. I'm all over the ND at the moment. I don't know why. When a new feature, becomes so good, you just end up like, that's my thing. It's my thing. It's just where I am in my zone of photography at the moment. Any of you shot landscape with focus stacking?
Yes.
Yeah, a couple of times.
You better answer this because I haven't.
If we have situation where we won't have focus on first plan with wide angle and on second plan and third plan and infinity, we must use focus stacking because we can down stop aperture to f22, but diffraction will kill our quality of image. If we want to have the best image quality, we need to use f8 or f11 and use focus stacking or focus bracketing for landscape. This is the best idea if we have a wide angle lens and we won't have focus on first plan and for infinity. And I prefer focus bracketing, and after focus bracketing, process all row in my computer, and then do focus stacking on computer.
Cool. What are you going to say, Aaron? Have you shot focus stacking on landscape?
Yeah, a little bit. And I guess, like PJ said, it is a great way, especially if you're using the wider angle lenses, to guarantee that level of sharpness across a much broader plane of, or depth of field. But I guess the one thing to point out, I suppose, for the folks that might not have done that before is that difference between the stacking in camera and also the bracketing. So PJ said he'd much prefer to do the bracket, and I'm assuming, PJ, that's because you have no limitation on the amount of shots you're going to be able to put into that bracket. Whereas when we're doing it in camera, you are the maximum number of shots is 15. Mm-hmm. Now, when you think about it, if you're shooting at, say, f11 or something like that, you would say 15 shots should be enough in order to guarantee you the depth of field that you need to, but it might not necessarily, and you might, for whatever reason, want to shoot at a shallower depth of field for whatever reason. If you are stacking in camera, then again, that maximum amount of shots to stack in camera is 15. But remember, you can also play around with the differentiation or the differential in between each of those shots as well. So for when we're shooting macro, we probably want those a little bit closer together, excuse me, to make sure that we're getting as much sharp detail on that smaller subject. Whereas if we're shooting, if we're shooting landscape, obviously we want to spread that out a little bit further because we're going to get that natural depth of field from each individual shot. But we can still either, again, combine them in camera, or we can combine them in PC or Mac later on.
Yeah. I think the other thing we need to sort of talk about while we're talking about this is focus point, because generally on a rule of thumb, when you're landscape, you focus a third of the way in the image, right? That's what we do with landscape. But when it comes to focus stacking and focus bracketing, those rules change a bit, don't they? Because with focus stacking, your a focus point needs to be in the middle of the image to let the automation work. And obviously with focus bracketing, then we would put the autofocus point at the front of the image, right? We've got to sort of work out that the rules change slightly to the placing it in the third of the image if you were just taking a single shot, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, and we must remember bracketing have a very good function for landscape photography, because even if we set 999 picture on bracketing, camera will stop do bracketing when focus will go to infinity. After 100, 200 shots, camera will stop, even we have set much more picture. This is great because we will not have 700 of unsharp image of infinity.
Right. Okay. So what would you say the maximum shots you'd need to take on the focus bracketed, like without going ridiculous? Then a couple of hundred is the max, really, right?
With 8 to 25 on f8 on widest angle, I need to from 80 to 120 shots to have all sharp in image.
Good stuff. I mean, it's a good start to work because, as I said, you can go from 0 to 999. So it's good to like put a stake in the ground and say, this is what I do. Try this, right? So thanks for that, BJ.
Bracketing also do the same like ND because if we have water on clouds on image, they will be blurred by next images in stacked.
Wonderful. You guys are amazing. I love it. Okay, we're going to go on. There's a quick question says, sorry, what is SH2? SH2, Edward, excuse me, is the sequential high number 2. You need to go to your continuous settings and SH2, SH1 are in there and you can change your parameters within. So I hope that
for the OM1.
For the OM1. Yep.
Yeah, because that's
that
is exclusive to the OM1. That's the only camera in our range that does have that.
Yep.
So you, yes, thanks guys, brilliant. Okay, another one. Does the Mark III have live ND? The EM1 Mark III. My teeth in. Can't remember.
Yes.
Yes.
Up to ND32. Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't go up to 64. That has been extended in the OM1. And it does make a little bit of a difference when you can just handhold it that little bit longer.
One thing I'll just quickly, sorry, Claire, just on that as well. One quick little thing that I will say, if you haven't found that, Sandra, I think it was her question about that. If you've got an EM1 Mark III, one of the really cool things and the fastest way to access live ND on an EM1 Mark III is to, again, program it to a function button. So on my EM1 III, I'll put it onto the plus minus or the exposure compensation button on the very top of the camera. Again, you don't have to use that button. That's just what I use. But what's brilliant about it is that you tap it once to enable live ND, but you can press and hold that button and then roll the rear control wheel with your thumb, and it'll quickly cycle in between each of those filter levels. And you'll actually see that change. It'll actually come up with, ND2 up to ND32 actually on your LCD screen while you're rolling through there. So it's just a quick and easy way to turn it on and turn it off when you need it. Instead of having to go menu and then go to live ND and then enable, et cetera, et cetera. So the other tip that we haven't talked about for live ND, sorry to derail again, but just while it's fresh in my mind, is that people do get tripped up on the fact that they might, especially when we're shooting landscapes, a lot of people would prioritize using aperture priority. But when you're using live ND, you do need to remember that you need to be shooting in either manual or in shutter priority. And the reason for that is that you need to be controlling that interval of the shutter speed of how long that interval is going to go for. So for those of you who are wondering why that's, for whatever reason, not activating, especially if you put it onto a function button, it won't activate unless you're in manual or in shutter priority on your mode dial on the top of the camera.
That's a great point.
Yeah. Good tip. It's great on the OM1 because you can press Y and it tells you, but it doesn't do that on the Mark III.
Right.
Yep.
No. Okay, Andy says, when should you use the circular polarizing filter on landscapes? I've heard you should always use it for better detail. And if you're not using any filters, the answer, I would definitely agree with that because it cuts out so much haze. You got to buy a decent one. You got to buy a really thin one because there are some real awful ones out there and they can deteriorate your image so badly. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Do you guys agree with the polarizing filter?
Of course.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, in high contrast scenes, definitely. And I think BJ touched on that before as well. And be careful with what you do purchase for those because they can create a really nasty color cast.
Yeah.
So just be really, really careful. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that you get what you pay for. You can get something that is, it might be nice, but you end up spending a little bit of time cleaning up the color after you've shot with it. Especially in particular scenarios as well. But otherwise for other situations, yeah, absolutely, they can be lovely.
Yeah, I totally agree. It
Yeah,
is
me
one
too.
of the things where the glass that you tend to put on the front of lenses in any form, be it UV filters, polarizing filters, ND filters, you do need to spend that little bit of money because it can make all the difference, you know. And when you think about how lenses is made, they're polished and they're coated and they're zero coated and fluorite. They take weeks and weeks and weeks to grind and coat a piece of glass. And these filter makers know what they're doing. So go for the super thin digital ones, and yet you do need to spend a little bit of money. Really important, that one. Okay,
Definitely.
let's go for the next question. Mark Hornby, for landscape, do you prefer graduated ND filters or exposure bracketing? Oh, that's interesting, because to me that would give you, you know, it's sort of almost giving you a slightly different image, isn't it? Because exposure bracketing, one before, one after, one the same, put them together. But that would be different to ND graduated ND filters, right?
Yeah, I think it almost becomes personal preference on what you're looking for, what you're doing with it. I like using graduated filters when I'm shooting something like, say, maybe a sunset with where there's water and maybe, a dark beach, a little bit of dark water. But yeah, I mean, you could bracket as well. So I think you're going to get a little bit different of an effect. It really is more personal preference on how you want to put it together later, maybe in editing. Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Aaron? Have you got any preferences?
Yeah, look, again, like Mike said, that it is very much a personal preference thing, and you're also going to achieve two completely different results. I guess the advantage of doing your exposure bracketing is going to be the advantage of a much broader dynamic range, because you've got so much more file information to work with in both of those extremes. So whereas obviously if you're only taking a single capture with a grad filter, yes, it's going to straight out of camera obviously give you a nice palatable file to work with, because you're taking that extreme out of there. Like Mike said, sunset, sunrises, that sort of thing, where you're really going to, well, that's where a grad's really going to come into its own. But I think the actual file that you're going to have to work with at the end of each of those processes is just going to be slightly different.
Yeah. Cool. PJ, what do you think?
I prefer filters because I remember positive film time in old cameras, and I won't have one file, raw file, and this is reason for that is because I need raw file to start in every contest, photo contest, because HDR and this files I can send to photo contest. Raw file I can. And this is reason why I prefer filters.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah.
Good stuff.
And we must remember high-res shot live ND, of course, produce raw file, and this is why this function are so great to landscape photography.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the thing about everything is you can always shoot raw, and all right, with the focus that you get the JPEG at the end, but you still get all the raws before, and you can do what you want with them in post, can't you? So lots of choice. Okay, Sikander has asked, I have the Zuiko 7-14 Pro lens. Can you recommend a filter attachment that would allow me to add a filter? Okay, so we are going into fairly specialist territory here. If you were to look, for instance, I'm going to just pull one brand out, which is the Lee filter range. Very, very expensive, about 150 quid, I think. So, and you do need to go for the larger size. You need to go for the 100 range, the 100 series, because the 7 series doesn't cover across the lens. But there are other opportunities out there. There are also some people that 3D print the filter.
The cowl. Yeah.
So I know there's a guy in Germany that does them. I can't remember his name. You do need a bit of research, but there are people out there that 3D print them. So yeah, I obviously as a third party manufacturer, I don't want to recommend a specific one, but there are forums and that out there you can find. But does everybody think the same? Obviously, I do have the Lee one, and the Lee one is pretty awesome, but it was not. It wasn't cheap. It was a couple of £100.
Yeah.
Benro and Nisi have cheaper Dunley system for 7 to 400, 7 to 40. But we must say, okay, for a little bit of vignetting on 7. On 7.5 is okay, and this is system for filter 100 to 150, and for me it's okay. Our ambassador Marcin Dobas, if you look for his picture, use a lot of Nisi system on 7 to 400, and I have blog post on his blog about the system to specific to this lens. It's available in Polish and in English. I can put a link to comments.
Brilliant.
After.
Yeah, pop that link in. I mean, we also have one of our, if you're in the UK or maybe not, you will know a guy called Phil Norton. He is a fantastic landscape photographer, shoots with OM1 and he's an ambassador for Nisi as well. And so there are some really good filters out there, but none of them are 10 quid. $10, €10. They are always a little bit of money, so you do have to be prepared. Whatever filter brand you go for, they're not cheap. But hey, very well worth it. Wrap them in cloth because they generally tend to be glass. And I've dropped 1 and 2 in my time, especially when you're on the beach, pebbles. You know, it's so. But PJ will put that link up in the live chat. Okay, let's move on. The Sabine HD, where is exposure compensation in the EM5 Mark III? Mike, you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. So you're going to see it when you're in, like, say, shutter priority, aperture priority, or program. It'll be on the front dial. One way to see what not to confuse anybody, but if you look at your rear screen on your Olympus or OM camera, whatever is highlighted in like yellow is what is able to change, and you'll see that exposure compensation bar pop up, and as you turn that front dial, you'll see it go up or down as far as exposure. So if you're in manual, you're not going to see that.
Exactly. And it's like you say, back of the screen, the colors that are sort of greeny yellow are the ones that I call live. Everything that's in white is stuff you need to go in and change, like ISO and stuff like that. But across the bottom of the screen, you're absolutely right. In aperture priority or shutter priority, back dial will change the aperture or shutter speed, front dial changes the exposure compensation. And that's what live view is all about. You lighten or darken your screen so you know exactly where you are. You can't get your exposure wrong with this one, guys. It's pretty easy to use. So we hope that helps.
Yeah, great little camera.
Yeah. Now, this is a very interesting question because this does come away from what people think we do. And I think this is really interesting because Krakara says, would OM1 be a good event camera? The answer is yes, because
absolutely.
You know, and if you're shooting with indoors with our 1.2 lenses or our 2.8 lenses, let me tell you, one of our TEs, Thierry, is an event photographer, shoots lots of rock bands, and his stuff is awesome. So the answer is yes. I know we seem that we're doing a lot of outdoor adventure stuff, but we still have the lenses that can help you. We have the 45 f1.2, the 25 f1.2, and the 17 1.2, which can almost see in the dark. When you pair that, or even the 12-100, because when you pair it with the image stabilization and the processor, especially with the OM1, it's pretty knockout. So although at this moment in time we seem to be only promoting outdoor stuff, we're still massively there for all the other stuff as well. Watch this space.
Also, the 75mm 1.8 is absolutely amazing for event photography because of the focal length. And let's face it, we can't always get exactly close to where our subject matter is going to be. So the equivalent 150mm on the 75mm 1.8 makes that an absolutely amazing lens for event photography because it's super sharp and wide open too. You do not need to stop that down at all. It is just.
I'm going to throw an interesting one out there. I have a 16x20 on my wall, a friend shot with a 12-100 at a concert.
Nice.
Yeah,
and it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, black and white, beautiful.
Well, that image sync is,
that's
you know,
what it is.
Get that extra help with the image sync. And again, back to PJ's favorite, the 12-100.
Well, and you have that ISO capability with that OM1, so you can combine that and really make use of that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly that.
We must remember, if we need to use very high ISO in OM workspace, we have IA noise reduction if we raw processing in OM workspace.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, we're nearly running out of time, but I'm going to ask these last 4 questions, because I think, you know, we can go over the 4. Hope you don't mind if we run over 10 minutes, guys. Spike, love the name Spike. I have an EM1 Mark III. Is there a way to set up my camera to switch high res mode on and off using the movie button, or is another an option? I put my teeth in. Is there another option? Who wants to take this, guys?
I'll take it if you want. You can't put it on a function button per se like the OM1. That's something new we did with the OM1 where you can map it to a button. But, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, you could set up a custom function and then put that on a function button so that you can, you know, flip it on and be on and off that way.
Yeah,
No,
you're absolutely
perfect.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with previous models, the high res was a 12-second process. With the OM1, it's now a 5-second process, which is why it's gained its own button. When you jump up to less than half the time of its previous feature or how it works, it deserves its own button. But I absolutely think, Mike, you're right. Put it on a custom function, so you only have to flick the mode dial rather than a button, a switch. Yeah. Definitely.
You can also custom mode put to one button, and you have access to high-res shot from button.
Yep.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. I'm just going to move that one away. Now, Steve, if a person is shooting OM with an OM1, what do you think the best camera is for a second body? Ooh.
OM1.
OM1. I love you guys. Right, Steve, that's your answer. We're not going to even go any further than that. We've all agreed OM1, right?
Same menu, same batteries, same setups, same configuration.
Right. Same
you must
menu,
have two OM1.
I'm totally with you, because, you know, with the menus changing, you would have the two running the same,
yes.
right?
And honestly, I mean, it's not an inexpensive camera, but comparatively to cameras that it would sort of compete with in the market, it is an inexpensive camera for what it has. So to have two of those bodies is fantastic.
Yeah, and I'm going to say again, we got cash back on them at the moment. There's $175, pounds, euros off. I don't know what that is in Australian dollars, but there are always promotions and that on it. So see what the treasurer says, Steve. Okay, John says, does the OM1 allow for a single shutter press to shoot a 3 to 7 shot exposure bracket, or do you have to hold down the shutter until all the shots are taken? PJ?
OM1 can do this in HDR mode. If you set HDR mode 3, 5, or 7 frames, you can put one-time shutter and camera do 3, 5, or 7 frames in one series.
I love it. I love it. Good stuff. Right. Now, this question, I'm going to absolutely crack up at this question. Well, Mike and Aaron separated birth. But what I would say is I'm going to have to grow a beard, because all you 3 guys have got like super sexy beards and headphones.
Good luck with that, Claire.
Clean shaven today.
Well, one thing that I will say to that is that, as you can tell, that to work for OM System, one of the prerequisites is that you need to be very good looking. So, that's I think where the commonality definitely is amongst all of the team. I can say that not tongue in cheek at all.
As I said, I definitely feel the odd one out. I definitely need to get a bit of 5 o'clock shadow going there, and next time I'm going to.
I want to see that.
Oh, bless! We love that, Dave. So all your comments, all your questions have been answered. I am totally chuffed with 8:05. No, nine, depending on where you are in the world. A couple of things before we go, as we always do. If you've got any images, don't forget, share them on our social media. We're a global company now, so everyone gets to see them. It's always at OMSYSTEM.Cameras, that's nice and easy. Check out our events page. There are some awesome events up there at the moment. Now, we do still do a lot of online stuff, but just so you know, we're allowed out to play now. And there are some outdoor workshops. There are some Tech Thursdays coming up. David Dax is your amazing tech guru that does the Thursdays. We've also got a coffee with the Clares coming up 3rd of April. That is the Shetland episode. If you know what the Shetland is, it's some islands at the very north of the UK, and 2 of our ambassadors have been there for a couple of trips, and so we've got some amazing pictures of offers to talk about. That's on the 3rd of April. As I said, the AMA Nightscapes and Astros show will be on Tuesday, the 25th of April. I don't know what TEs are going to be on that one yet, but just to say, PJ, Mike, and Aaron, thank you so much. As always, your knowledge
Absolutely.
is brilliant. I learn stuff every time I host this show, and it's amazing. Thank you so much to David and Michelle at the back end and in the questions. We hope that that was, and lovely to see you all. I mean, guys, have you enjoyed it?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
It's been great fun.
PJ, cool stuff.
Yes, of course.
Good. Well, thank you, guys, and a big wave from me. We will see you again soon in a month's time. Guys, I'm going to see you before then. And great stuff. Guys, good night. See you again soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Good night.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.